With that, I do want to talk to you about living on purpose, which to me is a part of living a healthy and abundant life. Because living on purpose and recognizing the ways in which we have been called to live out that which is within us, it's part of God's beauty and God's grace. It is recognizing that within us has already been implanted everything that we need, not only to live into the blessings, but to be a blessing. You know that I'm very much about recognizing the miracles that come into our lives and that we are able to create, and also recognizing that we can be a miracle in somebody else's life. And as we lift ourselves up, all of us get lifted up. And so being on purpose is really recognizing who we have come here to be. And I don't know about you, but I know my own spiritual journey started with asking that question, like, why am I here? Is there a purpose? What am I being called into? What is calling forth from me? Who am I in relationship to God? And when I recognize that I am one with God, what do I even do with that, right? And so this is a question that so many of us have asked ourselves. And each of us, I know, are here for a divine reason. There is no question in me that each and every one of us are an important part of the fabric that God is in the life of humanity. That we have all come here by divine appointments, that there is a divine purpose that is uniquely ours, and it is part of the fabric, right? It is part of the ways in which all of humanity gets to experience a greater sense of heaven on earth. And so today, not only are we going to talk about divine calling and purpose, but I wanted to give you some practical signs that you may experience when you're not living on purpose, right? Almost for those of you, how many of you actually know what your purpose in life is? Well, a few of you raise your hand. So for those of you who aren't fully aware of it or haven't fully engaged with it, listen up. But also, for those of you that raised your hand and said, yeah, I know my calling, I know my purpose, how many of you are living that calling and that purpose? Great. How many of you sometimes get sidetracked and don't fully live that divine purpose, right? So this is for all of us, because these signs that I'm going to share with you are really just an opportunity to course correct, to recognize that distractions happen. And if we're not aware of it or we're not intentional about it, they can distract us from the very things that we know value to us, the very things that will bring us a sense of good and a sense of love and a sense of peace and comfort within our lives. Now, what have I come here to be? Who have you come here to be? The purpose, sometimes we equate it with our job, right? We want to live and work our purpose. And sometimes it happens, and sometimes it doesn't happen, because it's not about the job. It's about how you show up at the job, right? It's about how you show up in relationship to the people around you. It's about how you show up in your own relationship with God and that divinity that is within you. One of the greatest poets of the 20th century, T.S. Eliot, while he wrote all that beautiful poetry, he was a banker. And he hung out at the bank, and while he did all the numbers, on the side, he was writing all this poetry. Because again, it wasn't about the job. It was really about answering the call that was within him and seeking out the ways to express it, whether at the job or whether at home or whether in spiritual community or out in the world. Now, Mark Twain says that there are two important days in our lives. He says the two most important days in life are the day you were born and the day you discovered the reason why. Our purpose is really the fulfillment of our deepest desires of beingness. Get that, right? It's not about what we do. It's about who we are and how we express our beingness out in the world. It is about seeking first the kingdom that is within us, because that kingdom has already been implanted in our hearts. It has been implanted in our minds. It has been implanted in our very soul. And the more that we uncover what's been implanted in us, the more that we'll have the strength and the courage and the power to live it out and to experience God in the activities of our lives. Now, discovering that call, discovering that purpose, it takes energy, It takes time, and it does take courage. There was an interview that I really loved watching. It was from Oprah interviewing Elizabeth Gilbert, who's the author of Eat, Pray, Love. And they were talking about this idea of answering the call and what that call may be. And see if those of you have figured it out, if you find yourself in this story, you may, if you haven't figured it out, still find yourself in this story, and maybe it gives you a little sense of relief, right, as you are searching for it. It says that first, the thing that we do is literally just ask the question, what have I come here to be? What is life about? Who am I about? Where am I supposed to express all that is within me? And what is that that's within me? And so you do that and you ask the question. Many of us ask that question in prayer and meditation. And some of you have had this experience where you hear the still small voice and it tells you what your call is. See, first we have to be open to it, but then we listen and we hear it. And I wish I would tell you that, especially for me, for example, I heard it and I was like, all right, let's get it going. But that's not necessarily the way that it happens for most people, as Oprah and Elizabeth Gilbert were saying. First comes the call, and then comes the refusal to listen to the call. Because you start asking yourself, wait a minute, me? I'm supposed to be that? I'm supposed to do that? Why me? Who am I to do these things? Who am I to be part of the uplifting of humanity and society and who I get to be out in the world? But then after some time of refusal and trying to look the other way, it nags on us, it nags on us, it nags on us. Our life itself begins to maybe even feel like a little bit of a nag until we finally say, all right, and we surrender. And we say yes to answering the call, and that's when the journey begins. Because that is all of a sudden when we're on the path, and it's a path of spiritual understanding, it's a path of spiritual discernment, of asking ourselves, okay, so I've got this call, now how do I live it? How do I embody it? How do I make it so much a part of who I am that I don't even have to tell somebody what my purpose is? They just know what that purpose is. They feel it, and they sense it. Now, it may not always be easy, and it's always worth it. Get that? Not always easy, and always worth it. Which reminds me of the story of Jonah and the whale. How many of you know the story of Jonah and the whale? Okay. Of those of you who raised your hand and you know the story of Jonah and the whale, how many of you are like me that basically what you knew was that Jonah was in a whale? So there apparently is a lot more to that story, and I want to share with you the metaphysical interpretation of it because I really believe it connects with what we're talking about, recognizing that call or that purpose. So the story of Jonah is that God says to Jonah, listen, you've got a purpose, and your purpose is to go to this town that is being ravaged, that needs a little bit of God's presence in it or God's love, and you are the one that is meant to take it there. So guess what nice, courageous Jonah did? Got in a boat and went the opposite way. He did. He got in a boat and went to was heading to another town called Tarshish. And metaphysically, this really represents our resistance sometimes to our call or our purpose. It's often that we try to avoid it, right? How many of us have been in avoidance of the things that we know we are meant to do? How many of us have been in avoidance of the things that we know we need to heal and move through and grow through? And so Jonah was the same, and he said no and started going the other way because, you know what? That seems too challenging. Who is he to be the savior of this city? Who are we to be the light of God in the world? And so it's a distraction and moving. And how many times do we find distractions so that we don't face the things that we have to face and face the call that is already implanted within us? And so all of a sudden Jonah's on the boat, and all of a sudden there's all these storms. And he encounters all these storms. And through that, he really recognizes, or there's a recognition that when we are moving into the distractions, God's grace brings about things that will shift us, right? How many of us have experienced that where we're heading a certain way and we know that's probably not the way? And so all of a sudden things start to show up to be like, you're right. You're supposed to be heading in the other direction. You're right. There is something more for you here. You're right. Something else is being called from you. And so all of a sudden these storms kind of make Jonah take a step back and look at what he may be doing as we ourselves in storms in our lives get the opportunity to ask ourselves the same question. Now, once, through the storms, all of a sudden there's the whale, and the whale comes in and swallows Jonah. But get this, while some people may see that as the negative, metaphysically, what that represents is he's getting into the belly of the beast, right? So here are all these storms happening in life, all these ways in which God is asking Jonah to course correct and follow the guidance. And so he goes within, he goes to the belly of the beast, to where the places where we have our fears about not being good enough, the places where we have the judgments or the memory of past failures that we can't get over or can't move through. And Jonah does the same. He goes within, and it is in the time of being in the presence of that which he was fearing, of that which was within him, that he surrenders. And so he goes into a prayer for forgiveness, of repentance, of recognizing, I was meant to go there. And yes, I got distracted, but you know what? I can do better. I can do better. And the moment that happens, the whale spits out Jonah, and Jonah lands on dry land, and metaphysically also being able to understand that the moment that we surrender, we will be on firm ground, that there will be safety there for us, that there will be protection for us the more that we go within and answer the call of being the expression of God in our unique ways out in the world. And so it brings Jonah to that place of recognizing he's got to go, and he does go to that first city that God invited him to, or asked him to go to, and the city was spared as a result of that. Or I would say the divine plan unfolded the way in the moment that Jonah said yes to living the divine plan. And so see, living on purpose not only transformed Jonah, or living on purpose doesn't only transform us, it really has a positive impact on the world. Our purpose is completely tied to serving others and contributing to the greater good and bringing more of the heaven that we get to experience when we live our call, so that others can experience more of heaven also. It is what Reverend Trapp last week said, right? When we all do better, we all do better. And so the more that we answer that call, the more better, is that? The more better, I'm gonna say it anyways, the more better it will be. So while we resist and experience turmoil and even try to hide from our calling, the path to fulfillment is already laid out, and the surrendering to it and aligning ourselves with that divine call is part of the process. So wherever you're at in it, don't be hard on yourself. It's part of the process. And now you get to ask the question, what do I do next in this process? How do I bring more of God's good into this process? How do I bring my own divine wisdom into this process? We're not in the business of playing it small. We're not. If you're at Unity on the Bay, just know you're not in the business of playing it small. We don't do small here at Unity on the Bay because we know the bigness of God within us, because we know the bigness of what is alive in us and being able to be shared by us. So if you're wanting to play it small, this ain't the place. This is the place for big dreams. This is a place for a big impact. This is a place for shifting and changing our consciousness, and through that, not pretending that that doesn't have an effect on the people around us and on the world. But it takes purpose to show up in that way. Adam Grant, who's an organizational psychologist and a best-selling author, he says, progress without purpose is empty, achievement without impact is fleeting. Success is most rewarding when it serves the people and principles that matter to you. So what are the things that matter to you? Who is it that you are meant to serve and support and love on through the very unique ways in which you were created? And more importantly, as you are searching for that, let's be clear on some of the signs when we are in the distractions, or when we are getting off the expressway and taking a little detour, when we know we got to get on that expressway and get to our vision, get to heaven on earth ASAP, right? And so what are the 3 signs that I invite you all to be looking at, whether it's because you haven't figured out your purpose, or because maybe there are things that happen in life and there are distractions and there are things keeping you from fully living the purpose moment by moment, day by day, life in its way. And so the first one is a persistent feeling of lack of fulfillment and joy. having, not feeling fulfilled in what you do, not feeling joyous in what you do. Say this, well, how many of you have experienced that, where you have those moments where it's like, wait a minute, this doesn't fulfill me. What am I doing here? All of a sudden, I thought I was just a little unhappy, but what I'm realizing is I'm just not able to find the joy in this. How many of you have experienced that? Join me in saying this together with me. Starting today, no more. Say it with me. Starting today, no more. See, this is more than just a bad day or a bad week. It's that nagging sense that something vital is missing from our life. And we might find that we are going through the motions. Maybe we are achieving success, but we even find the success a little empty. It doesn't fill us up the way that we thought we would, or the way that somebody told us we would feel the moment that we reach that success. We're feeling maybe like we're not truly living, even though things are maybe going well for us. If you're feeling this way, again, don't be hard on yourself. It's just a sign that your soul is yearning for more. And that emptiness is really not a sign of failure. That emptiness is itself the divine nudge that is asking you, wait a minute, there's a deeper guidance at hand. Wait a minute, go within and ask God, the God of your being, who and what you are meant to express in this moment. Maybe it's time that we go into the belly of the beast like Jonah and really face our fears about who we are or who we think we're not. Really face our fears about feeling worthy of it or not. And let me just tell you that all the things that make us worthy are already implanted in us. Right? Like when you go into some time of meditation, if you are feeling this way, and contemplation, ask yourself, is there something that will bring joy into my life? Are there things that are within me that the moment I express them, I feel joyous about, and other people experience joy? And I'm not talking about the things that you learn along the way. I'm really talking about the things that are never changing within us, the things that are God itself and that were implanted within us that nothing can take us away. We keep thinking that we have to do things in order to be worthy without realizing that everything that makes us worthy has already been implanted in us. Everything that makes us worthy already is. There's nothing we need to do about it except live it, except acknowledge it, and accept it. The second thing that I invite you to look out for is when you're feeling fatigued with the constant struggle and the constant resistance. Listen, I'm not one of those people that says that when you're on purpose, you're not going to see resistance or you're not going to see struggles. But I know that you will experience differently. And this is not about being tired. Let me tell you, I'm a little tired. I went to a party yesterday. No. But this is how tired I am. Tom stayed out. The party started at 7:30. At 8:30, I was like, all right, gotta go. See you tomorrow. See you around, right? And I still woke up tired, right? So doesn't mean that when we're on purpose or we're living our call, we don't have moments of being tired. But there's a difference between tired and fatigued. You can rest for being tired. Fatigued, it's a course correct. It's inviting us to ask some deeper questions. For being tired, self-care, right? That's why self-care is so important. There's no self-care for fatiguedness about life. What that is really inviting us into is ask a different question, live a different way. And that's the power of recognizing when these signs come up, because then we get to do something. We can't do something about something we're not fully aware of. We can't surrender to something that we're not aware of. We can't accept something that we're not aware of. We can't live fully something that we're not aware of. And so if you are finding yourself that you are fatigued because so much is coming at you, it's, to me, again, it's not that there won't be resistance when you're living your call, but if it starts to feel like there's no end in sight, if it starts to feel like this is getting the best of you, if this starts to feel like it's unsurmountable, just ask the question. Am I really living my purpose? Or am I bringing my purpose into those situations where I feel fatigued? The third thing I invite you to be on the lookout for is that sense of disconnect from your higher self. Oh, wait. See, I got all into it that I forgot to do one thing. All right, so who sometimes feels fatigued by the resistance that we feel in life sometimes? Say, starting today, no more. Beautiful. Now we're going to do it for the third one. The third one, a sense of disconnect from your inner self. Say it with me. Today, starting today, no more. Because we have everything that we need in order to feel connected, to feel one with God, to recognize our oneness in God. But really, when we're not aligned with our calling or our purpose, it could really manifest with us not feeling connected to our divine wisdom. Why? Well, we haven't been answering the call of divine wisdom, right? We've been too busy to answer the still small voice. And therefore, we feel disconnected from it because we're not following it. We're not living it. We're not really allowing it to be what guides us. And all of a sudden, we can be disillusioned with life. And so when we're not aligned with our purpose, it's really easy to lose sight of who we truly are and what we're here to do. It also can mean that we have identified way too much with that which is outside of us, or the successes that the human ego would have us say will make us feel connected or powerful or one with, right? And so an invitation to recognize we can pull away from that and really go within and recognize we've been worthy from the get-go. There is nothing that we need to do. There's just who we need to be out in the world and what we get to live as an expression of the divine. Our higher self, our inner self is always beckoning us for the next place that we are meant to be. It is always guiding us to the places that need us to show up more fully in. But this disconnection that we sometimes feel really stems from these external expectations that we put on ourselves and on others. And the more that we realize, wait, I have to be good with me. I have to be good with the God of my being. We can reconnect. So living on purpose is really not about finding a career or fulfillment in certain roles. It's an alignment of the very aspects of our lives with the values that we carry and the way in which we move out into the world. It is living our highest potential and being so aware of it that we just can't keep it from being what exudes from us. And it's never too late. Grandma Moses, some of you may know her, wonderful artist. She created over 1,000 paintings after she began painting at the age of 77 years old. And at 100 years old, she was on the cover of Times Magazine. If she can do it, she's doing it to beckon us to recognize it is never too late. Say that with me. It is not too late. It is not too late. And we are the ones that get to carry that wisdom within us to recognize how we are able to show up in that world. And remember, that which you are seeking is always seeking you. When those three signs pop up, it's not a negative thing. It's like a, wow, wonderful. It is my purpose, my calling is seeking me to live it more fully. And it's showing me the ways in which I can course correct and I can fully live into the gifts and talents and the being that I have come here to be. I want to leave you with a quote from Marianne Williamson. She says, "You have tremendous gifts to give. God sent them with you when you came to this earth, and while you might forget them or doubt they exist, God does not forget, and God will show them to you. As soon as your gifts are dedicated to God's work, they will blossom. Chains that might have held you back for years will dissolve, and you will feel free. You will learn that your spirit is bigger than your circumstances as soon as you put your spirit first. Together, we create heaven on earth. Together, our individual purposes, values, and intentions become the pathway for all of us to experience more of God's good." And I always leave with a question, in my mind when I think about how I want to show up. If not now, when? If not who? If not me, who? This is the time. We are the ones, and heaven is at hand. Let's live on purpose and make it so. Namaste.